Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's good to see everybody back. It's been asked if I had a great summer, and I said it was way too short. So,
Don't hold the button.
oh, okay.
Press once.
Press once. I'm thinking of a microphone on a old CVs. Anyways, welcome to the meeting and call to order. And the recommendation is that the agenda of the Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting dated September 26, 2024 be approved as circulated, amended. Can I have a first? Karen and Barbara, what happened here? All in favor? Carried. Is there any disclosure or pecuniary interests? None? Okay, thank you. Approval of minutes. The recommendation that the minutes of the Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting dated June the 20th, 2024 be approved as circulated. Judy and Penny, thank you. All in favor? Carried. So, moving on to deputations. Adele Gant, Muskoka Transportation Network and Community Grants Coordinator, District of Muskoka, regarding the Demand Responsive Transit Program. And that would be, oh, thank you for coming.
Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me. I'm here today just to provide a brief update on the District of Muskoka's demand responsive transit system. We do have an intended launch date, which would probably be the first week of November, so we're aiming for November the 4th. As some of you may have tuned into some of our district meetings, I'm not going to go in quite so much detail, but hopefully provide some information for you all. So in January, Blaze Transit was awarded the contract for technology, and that was to facilitate the implementation of a demand responsive transit system for the District Municipality of Muskoka. This September, we went back to Council, and we had approval for Phase 1 to begin this fall. And then our Phase 2 would be implemented at the end of Phase 1, which at this current time is going to last until March 2025. What Phase 2 looks like will depend on demand as well as funding, and depending on different options to roll that out. So for those of you that aren't exactly sure what demand responsive transit is, it's an alternative form of transit where the passenger's demands actually dictate what the routes will be. There are no fixed stops or a fixed route. It doesn't therefore operate on a set timetable, and it's often facilitated through a technology platform. So currently we do have some service that's running where it's just manually done. This new technology will enable us to optimize all of the routes and do all the algorithm calculations in the background. Passengers will have the ability to book rides in advance, and they'll be able to use an app that they would download to their smartphone. They're able to use a website, or they're, of course, able to call and speak to a real live person. So the Blaze platform is designed to supplement, complement, or replace fixed route services. It improves efficiency and lowers operational costs. Obviously, it will streamline things for the passengers. And it is something Blaze that they sort of focus on rural connections, such as the District of Muskoka. So this is a transit system that may not, this technology may not be as useful, say, in a city center where the demand is so high that fixed routes can provide all of that. However, in a rural place, we have found through our pilots that many times there's a vehicle on the road and it's not very efficient, that it's running back and forth on fixed routes, and the ridership is very low. So this will dictate the rides using the technology, and it'll be based on the rider's demands. So the Blaze platform itself is made up of 3 different components. There's the Blaze Passenger, the Blaze Drive, and the Blaze Engine. So I'm just going to briefly talk about each one of those and what they're going to do. The Blaze Passenger is a app or website application, and basically you set up a profile and you will be able to book your rides through either your smartphone, through the website, or by calling in and speaking to somebody over the phone. Also, we know in Muskoka, people will sometimes not want to be using technology for payment, so payment is going to still be an option to pay on board the vehicles with cash. Riders would select their date. They can either calculate their ride, so say somebody has a medical appointment, they know they have to be at the location by, say, 9 a.m. The algorithms will backtrack, calculate what time they need to leave their origin point, and then it will calculate how the ride is going to pick them up. Rides can be shared or they can be individual. It's all based on demand. So it will calculate what time the ride will commence and what time it will get them to their appointment. Other times you might say, I'm sitting here at a stop and I just want to book it now. So the departure time would be what you'd be booking by, and then it would calculate what time you'll arrive back to your return point. Also, the amazing thing about the Blaze Passenger, there's the ability to specify lots of the different requirements that a rider may have. So special mobility things such as if someone had a wheelchair, a bike, a stroller, anything like that can be loaded into the profile. So if somebody routinely travels with a support person or a companion, that can be put right into the user's profile, and therefore every ride they book would accommodate and account for another seat being taken by their support person. If they don't use this every time, but maybe on certain trips they do use that, there's a section where they can put in the notes that today they will have a companion with them, or we can add notes as well as the operator. We could say this client requires you to face them when you're speaking to them because they're hard of hearing. We can specify and make this so that it's very efficient and user-friendly for the passenger. Like I mentioned before, the riders can pay online, or they have the ability to pay within the app or website if they do have a credit card, and they're allowed to upload and pay for various passes. We specify and we're able to customize if we want to sell 10 ride passes or a monthly pass, or if we're keeping it to individual passes. And this is something we'll be exploring. Phase 1, we're keeping everything super simple with $5 flat rates. Through the algorithms and the analysis that Blaze will help us with, we'll be determining phase 2 what the actual fares may be. And they probably will be distance-based. The passengers, of course, as always, can still call in and speak to a person, and a person can set up the profile and enter any of their accessibility requirements as well. So the Blaze Drive app is the second portion. Basically, drivers will be guided kind of like a GPS. They'll press start on their shift that day. It'll prompt them to do a vehicle inspection. It will produce the manifest that they are going to have for all of the passengers that they're picking up that day. And it will guide them step by step through each stop. For different types of riders, we can specify what the rules are in terms of if somebody is requiring a door-to-door service versus somebody who's able-bodied might just prefer curb to curb. That would be more of a standard. If there's a great density of passengers being picked up at a specific spot, say like a housing location or a town or sort of at the YMCA, we could have a fixed stop where it pools all the people that are in that area, and this is the meeting point, and it basically creates a virtual stop for them. So the driver will be instructed what to do, what to pick up, when to stop, and he's just confirming and boarding passengers. The Blaze engine, I won't go into too much detail, but that's the back end that will allow the service provider and the district the ability to look at all of the analytics and reporting. Also, because the tablets will be installed on vehicles, as well as our Corridor 11 bus, we'll be able to see in real time where those vehicles are and some of the demographics and an overview of some of the analytics. It goes through a whole bunch of other analytics that we are now basically doing spreadsheets, and drivers are ticking off things as passengers board. So this will capture all of that for us. So Blaze will be providing us an analysis of our current operations, as well as sort of examining the linkages that we can create between the town of Bracebridge, town of Huntsville, because they have fixed routes, and we have the Corridor 11 fixed route as well. We know that riders often have, in a rural community like Muskoka, they may want to use some of the other services or connect with the Ontario Northlander, the Simcoe Links, things that are outside of Muskoka. So this would be the linkage to get them to those further journeys. The demand responsive transit program will be launched in phases. So like I said, our phase 1 will be starting. We do have a vehicle on the road which is servicing some riders at the moment. The real launch will be quite likely November 4th. That's what we're aiming for. And that will allow people to link with the other services and book the rides through those different methods. Whether we add a second vehicle at what point in the phases will depend a lot on the funding and different partnership opportunities. Obviously, if we have applied for Rural Solutions funding, if that were to come through, the acceleration period and the rollout of this would be probably much quicker than if we're just doing it one vehicle at a time. So we're focusing on starting in Gravenhurst. We've had a few meetings with Blaze to determine the exact area. Eventually, the connections will be with the Corridor 11 and the town of Bracebridge as the second step. The phase 1 is anticipated to do weekday, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. service hours. And like I mentioned, Blaze Technology will be on board the Corridor 11 bus as well as the demand responsive vehicles. So if somebody lives in a rural location, we can get them from there to an urban center, and the stops that are in Gravenhurst, they could then transfer and be shown on the app that they're going to the Corridor 11. And the genius thing about the Blaze technology is it's not designed just for the District of Muskoka. This is a universal system that Simcoe, Collingwood, some other places are using. So if you've downloaded the app within your geographic area, you can choose which of the areas that you want to book a ride in. And so our hope and goal in the future would be that all the different vehicles perhaps could have some type of technology, and people would be able to see where they are, and we can link things. Like I mentioned, for this phase 1 implementation, we've kept it simple with a $5 rate. Future phases, of course, will be examined, and depending on distance, it will be calculated similar to our Corridor 11, which is distance-based. So that concludes my presentation, and I welcome any questions.
Go ahead, Barbara.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much for the presentation. I thought it was really outstanding, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing how the analytics behind this. I'm assuming the analytics, but I might be wrong in my assumption. I'm assuming the analytics will give us an idea from accessibility, how many people are giving accessibility requests through the services. Any ideas about that?
I believe in the back end, that's all recorded. When the profiles are set up, the person, I mean, if they didn't want to disclose that information or get a door-to-door service, we might miss a few. But if they've set their profile up and have selected door-to-door because of different requirements that they need, that would all be captured. One thing to note is we've already had a few meetings with Blaze, and we've talked about a wheelchair may indicate a 5-minute boarding time depending on the ramp or the lift of the vehicle and what other needs are required to situate the person. Whereas somebody with, a mobility challenge may only require 2.5 minutes. Regular passengers are usually allotted about a 10-second boarding time. So yeah, it accounts for all of that.
Super. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So I think you said there's only one car or one vehicle right now, and how many would that hold?
Through you, Chair, for the time being for Phase 1, there is only one vehicle. It's an accessible van. I believe it holds 14 passengers, but we do also have the ability, and the nice thing about this is all the information is stored in a tablet. If the ride, say, the demands of what is already booked suggests that we could use a sedan and just take these riders where they needed to go because there's no mobility issues, that is a possibility. If the riders have demands, for Phase 1, to answer the question, we just have the one vehicle. For future phases, we envision that we would have several accessible vans, several sedans, possibly something larger. It could be a mixed fleet of vehicles.
Subsequent, thank you. So one van with 14 places. So if so you'd have to make your phone call fairly well in advance, would you not? Like what sort of time period would they have? Because it couldn't be the same day as the appointment. It would have to be like 2 or 3 days.
Through you, Chair. In Phase 1, Blaze has advised us to keep the rules quite loose about that. We do have the ability to require bookings to be 7 days in advance, 1 hour in advance, 30 minutes in advance. We can, the demand of the ridership, and with one vehicle and the entire town of Gravenhurst in the initial Phase 1, I don't imagine that to be the case, but say there were 6 vehicles on the road or more vehicles, eventually the algorithms would say, we need to dispatch a sedan to this location to accommodate that ride, and it's going to pick up 4 people along the way. This other vehicle that is an accessible vehicle is going to pick up this person and this person. So sometimes the rides would be direct if you're the only one booking it at that exact time. Other times your ride may be a little bit longer because you're stopping to pick up 3 other people that are also going the same direction as you. So in Phase 1, it's not going to be ideal, but it's going to at least capture some of the analytics. Even if the ride can't be booked that same day, it's going to capture that a ride was attempted to be booked, and that will help us dictate and also provide information to the town of Gravenhurst in case there is a fixed route and where the demands are for future.
Could I ask another one, please, through you, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm just ideas coming to me. So if the van is in Bracebridge, I assume, is that where it heads out from initially?
Through you, Chair. In the morning, it is through the depot in Bracebridge. That's where it's coming from. And then once it arrives, so our envision for future phases would be there'd be multiple vehicles. They wouldn't all be coming back to Bracebridge at the beginning and end of every day. And if we're moving to electric vehicles in the future, of course, we'd have chargers that were based where that vehicle kind of has a home base. Phase 1 is going to be less sophisticated with one vehicle.
No, I understand that, and I think it's amazing. I think this is wonderful. I guess what I'm thinking of, okay, you get somebody in Kilworthy, say, who says they need to be picked up, and then you get a call in Huntsville. So that person in Huntsville is going to be told, well, we're working our way towards Bracebridge, say, for doctor's appointments, and then we'll carry on to Huntsville. Like, that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
I realize this is going to be very hard to start with, but I still think it's amazing.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out at you, yeah.
Through you, Chair. For Phase 1, we have, we're still refining it, but we have a preliminary idea of what the boundaries will be. And since Gravenhurst has a greatest need where the town of Bracebridge and the town of Huntsville do have transit systems, we've honed in and created just that area as our Phase 1. So we're going to do that at least until January. Blaze will be sort of analyzing some of the demand and any rides that were rejected to help inform and guide us to our when we can implement a second vehicle. Of course, this also depends on funding, but at least until the end of the year and possibly until the end of phase 1, which would be March 2025, because the funding and the contracts that we currently have both take us to the end of March 2025. At the end of this year or beginning of 2025, we are intending to put out an RFP for service for phase 2, which would start April 2025.
So thank you for that, because I didn't realize Bracebridge and Huntsville had their own transportation. That was, okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Barbara.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I was just wondering what your communication process will be to let others know about phase 1. Thank you.
Thank you. And through you, Chair, we've just found out the date yesterday. So we are intending to roll out some publicity and media. We're in the midst of working through all of that right now, but definitely we will do that. We've also discussed possibly having a day where we have a day or a week where we have free ride passes that we can give out, as well as maybe going to the library or to the high school or to different centers. We're trying to assess, first of all, is the November 4th realistic? And basically, I think we have our ducks mainly in a row, but there is a learning curve when the technology is completed, that then we will have to make sure that the technology all works, as well as have driver training, as well as have district staff training. So hoping that all that goes smoothly in the timeline that we learned of just yesterday. We're predicting November the 4th, so we're hoping to get some publicity out in October.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. In connecting with communication, are you also in communication with the local nonprofits and government agencies who would have clients or others who would use this service?
Thank you. That's a great question. And through you, Chair. So we do provide services at the district ourselves, as well as we've sort of mentioned some of this to Muskoka Seniors, Red Cross, a lot of the nonprofits. There is definitely a need. There are a lot of nonprofits within the area that are spending their own funds, or they're also having volunteers provide rides. So we're hoping that that would alleviate some of that. Obviously, if we're pooling these rides to a ride share program, and like I said, phase 1 won't be so extensive, but it will at least give us a test phase before we then expand out to the other areas. So the hope is that that would alleviate a lot of the nonprofits. We are probably going to send out some surveys. We do have First Nations, which we've met with as well, and they're very underserviced, so we've been in contact with them. I've spoken to a few different organizations, GAP being one of them. So we're hoping that, along with the communication to the public, we'll probably have some other communications as well for the people that already have clients and are nonprofits servicing a lot of the riders that we may end up servicing as well. Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. I have one or a couple. Gravenhurst is almost extends to Walker's Point Road. So is that the kind of the boundary you're thinking of, or would you be going past that?
Through you, I believe that we have encompassed some of the, I'm not sure on that specific, but we have basically with Blazed identified any of the residential type areas. So if it's industrial or if it is less residential, we've tried as much as we can to encompass all of the residential areas. I know that we are also intending to have Skyways Motel as part of this phase 1. That's been a need for a very long time, and we've been requested many times to have Corridor 11 rerouted. However, with Corridor 11's schedule and there not being a ramp there, that's been very challenging. So even though Skyways is outside of this area, we've asked for them to at least just include like, it's got a little circle around it. So to include that in the phase one rather than wait until it expands and would be included geographically.
The other question I have is that Simcoe has a on-demand ride program. So they're using the same technology, the Blaze technology?
Through you, I believe that they are. So Blaze has shared with us a few, and we've met with a few different rural communities and municipalities that are sort of in the same situation, one of which implemented in January, that was New Grenville. And they are a rural community. They found after 3 months, the demand was there and high enough that they expanded their hours as well as included weekends. So I'm not sure what that will look like for us. However, if we received the Rural Solutions Transportation funding, that would be able to accelerate our desire to expand much quicker. But at this point, it's a fine line of analytics, ridership demand, as well as being able to secure the funding in order to either expand and pay a service provider or purchase a fleet.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we're moving on now to our working group reports, the Advocacy and Education Working Group. The discussion with Shauna Patterson, Director of Recreation, Arts and Culture, Reaccessibility Event.
Thank you so much. Through you, Mr. Chair. We were hoping to start discussion about an event to be done yearly, hopefully. It's called something like Walk in Your Shoes. It's an opportunity for people who are able-bodied, who can experience what it might feel like for somebody who has accessibility needs. And so the idea behind the day is perhaps to have the council members and or some of the staff of the town participate in this in different ways, whether it's perhaps in one location or different locations in the town. So, for example, somebody who might need to use a wheelchair and might need to get around the wharf. How does that happen? What are some of the great things that are happening down there that help them with that? And what are some of the issues that are a little bit in need of some attention? Another thing might be on the main street. We know that the businesses are privately owned, have great opportunities there for services for clients to come into their organizations, but they're not always accessible. Again, the buildings have been there for years and years, much before, many years before the accessibility requirements. And so there are some steps and some other things. And some businesses have certainly taken the initiative and created opportunities, like the Bethune Bistro Cafe has an opportunity for a ramp entrance, but there are others that haven't been able to do that yet. And there is cost assigned to that, and there's also logistics connected with the town, because you're talking about the town, as I understand it, but I might be wrong, the town sidewalk is the town versus the steps into your actual business, so there's a relationship there. So I'm probably saying too much, but anyway, that's the idea of the walk in my shoes or their shoes. Thank you.
Okay, so I have some questions. So my questions kind of revolve around, is this group helping create this event, or are we taking on this event based on your suggestions? Maybe we can start there. What you think it might look like, or how do you foresee it coming to life?
I'd like any of the other members of the group to chime in as well, if you've participated in something like this or you have some ideas. Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Okay, I have one worry, is that the YWCA has a program, I believe, walking in their shoes. Is that not correct?
So that's a bit of a different
Oh, I realize it's a,
event.
yeah, it's a different
So-
event, but the same name.
It is this. It's called Walk a Mile in Her Shoes, and it's an event. I believe it's based around women's and children's abuse.
Yes.
And they walk in high heel shoes.
No,
a
I
mile.
yeah.
So I'm understanding that you want something where it's an event where people can experience, who aren't able or who are able-bodied, to be able to experience what it's like for somebody in a wheelchair, maybe someone who's blind who has to cross the street, or maybe, am I understanding that correctly? So we may have to change the title. I don't think we could take the title from another event that already exists.
Thank you.
I just want to know, is this already a concept, or are we taking this away and coming back? Is it going to be a town corporate event? Are we budgeting for it? I have a bunch of questions.
And I love all those questions, and that's where we get to begin.
Yes.
Because we haven't done this before, and we're a committee that is getting back into our swing of things, and this would be a great opportunity for us to demonstrate some of what our knowledge is and some of what folks that have accessibility needs are going through. And it's just an opportunity for us to engage in that way. Now, the logistics, I understand, I fully understand, and we can certainly go through that with you. If by any chance you have sort of a top 10 things to think about with respect to these logistics, then that's something that we can certainly go through and give you our feedback on each one of them. So that might be helpful. So for example, we have a small budget that perhaps if we all agree, we could provide some budget towards this. But I don't know how much it's going to actually cost, because it depends on where we go with it, right?
Yeah, I mean, it could be relatively low cost if you're trying to go for impact to get people doing stuff. It doesn't have to be expensive. Like, you can have things happening that may be free for us to do, but have a greater impact on the community. So I think there needs to be some brainstorming on what this looks like, since it's not been done. If we need budget, depending on, I don't know what you mean by small. Is it 1,000? Is it 500? Is it, like, I need to have a kind of a base to start with, because if we need to add budget to our event line from a town side for a corporate event, then I need to bring that to budget, which is coming up very soon. I think my deadline is October 10th to get my budget in to our treasurer. So very soon, which is like a couple weeks away. So Jennifer, this is Jennifer, by the way. She runs all of our corporate events currently.
Great.
So maybe step one, I understand the concept, I think I have it understood, is we can go away and kind of say, oh.
I'm going to say something after you.
Oh, okay. We can go away with somebody assigned from the working group maybe to brainstorm a little further to bring something back at the next meeting.
Sure.
Sorry, Patty, you want to go first?
Oh, sure. I mean, I'm going to respond to Shauna through you, Mr. Chair. And Barbara, I think I mean, there are organizations like Crohn's and Colitis, which is mainly just to bring attention to something. And I think what we would probably be asking of the town is to help with the promotion of the fact that this is happening. More than anything, it's not, and I don't think it's going to be a huge deal. Maybe, though, the town would put out promotion material, which would have to be put together by a working group, I guess, as to what's happening, and those brochures would then, most likely, it would be more promoted for next year. I don't know if we'd get it ready for this year, but definitely next year would be sort of a starting off point. And I think the Crohn's and Colitis, which Councillor Robinson heads that up. And it's mainly starts at Gull Lake, and people come and join it, and it's just bringing attention to that particular disease. And it's growing quite exponentially over the years. I can't remember how many years it's been going for, but I think that's sort of what we're thinking of. Is that correct, Barbara? Yeah. So it's not, I don't think we're asking for a lot of money, but I'm sure that hopefully the town would help with, I don't know, flyers and something on the side, like a banner of some sort to bring attention to whatever the day is that we pick for that particular day. Anyway, that's just my thoughts.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Not to pump the brakes on the discussion, but just to let you know that committee cannot direct staff to conduct work. That has to be done through council. So the first step essentially would be to request council to engage or to ask staff in order to engage with us, the brainstorming and the thought process behind this event, as well if there's any potential budgeting. So a motion generally would be required for this case. So I don't know if there is going to be any motion, or I shouldn't say motion, but any progress before October 10th. But, sorry, go ahead, Shauna.
I guess I'm just looking for clarity on what our role is. So is it giving advice? Is it helping create the event? Is it just strictly promotion? Because that's not even me. So that goes to a different department. So I'm more looking for clarity of what our role could be in this, or if we have a role even in this.
I'm going to put the question right back to you. If you were presented with this opportunity, what type of role would you typically take on?
So I guess that depends. Is it going to be considered a corporate event? Because in that case, then we would take on a bigger role. Is it going to be a place of advice where we're giving, because we do events, giving you back advice on how to run the event? That's also a different pathway. So I guess it depends as if you want us to run it with support or you just need advice. I don't know if that's helpful, but is this group creating the event? Is this group creating the event and coming up with everything and putting it together with advice coming from us? I guess is what I need to know.
How would it trip into being a corporate event? What would be necessary for it to become a corporate event?
We would essentially just take it on with some input from the committee. Municipal significance is related to alcohol. So I don't think there'll be alcohol in this event. So where there's alcohol involved, I have to go through a designation for the LCBO. Yeah.
I have a question, actually, Penny. The colitis event, is that a corporate event or is that just a ad hoc event? Is there a possibility you could tie into it?
Do you want me to take that? Yes. So the Crohn's and colitis event is done externally. So Michelle Robinson organizes it, books the space through us. So we just create a permit to allow them to use the space. They have to provide us with insurance, and then they run their own event. We have nothing to do with it. So for us, our corporate events, if you think bigger, is like Mayor's Tea, Canada Day, Make a Splash, which we do at the beach. So anything that invites or involves the community becomes a corporate event for us. If we take it on, that's generally what ends up being a corporate event.
Okay. Through you, Mr. Chair, sorry. I think we're leaning towards corporate event. I mean, the idea is to have the council members there. To me, that says corporate. To have the staff there, that says more corporate, and to invite others to be part of this, possibly, I don't know. We have to get to those logistics, obviously. And from a time period point of view, in May of every year, the end of May and into June, they have National Accessibility Day / week. So we could, again, roll that into all of that, right? So it becomes one major event during that week that we have. So it gives us a lot of time to prepare for it as well. I'm more than happy to be part of any kind of subgroup that works with Shauna and your colleague to figure this all out. But
I have another question.
only one.
So I'm just now thinking back to how Winter Carnival used to run as a committee of council. So we ran that as a subcommittee of council event, but there was a staff liaison on the committee who was kind of the organizer, the overseer. So are you the staff liaison on this, Jonathan? No, there's no staff liaison?
So are you asking whether there would be a staff liaison for community?
For this committee?
Oh, sorry, yes, I am the staff liaison for the committee, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Thought you were thinking about creating another
No.
Winter Carnival
I was just
type.
referring back to Winter Carnival where the staff liaison does it, or like the Community Spirit Awards, right? The staff liaison helps run the event, so I don't know if it would be the same for this, or,
I would definitely throw in help where necessary, of course.
yeah, absolutely,
Yep.
yeah, okay. I'm just trying to wrap my head around what the big picture is.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Years ago, they did a mile in your shoes. John Klink was then the mayor, and I don't know if there's any record of how it was held. It was done on the main street. That's how it was done many years ago. And the councillors were in it. They were in wheelchairs. They were with canes, all sorts of things. I don't know if there's any record of that, but apparently it was very successful.
I could definitely look back. I wasn't here when
No,
John
I
Klink was here, so I don't know all the history, but something we can look into.
I think if you checked with, excuse me, through you, Mr. Chair, with Councillor Cairns, because I believe she was part of it.
Yes.
Because she has told me about being in a wheelchair with oven mitts on her hands, trying to push a wheelchair
Wheel,
around.
wheel, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe all of council back then, so perhaps if you got in touch with, yeah, thank you.
So I have one more question, Barbara. I have it. Are you clear on what you want from Shauna? Or do you need to scratch your head some more with the group that's on this?
I think it's clear that we have an event idea in mind. I think it's clear that we have a date-ish in mind in May. I think the logistics that Shauna is wrapping her head around, as she should, like money, who, what, where, when, how, why, we still need to deep dive into. In order to do that, Jonathan, do we need a motion today to council, to request council to ask staff for assistance? And then there's the monetary aspect of this as well, if there is any monetary aspect attached to it.
It's completely up to you if you like to pass the motion.
If we pass a motion today, does that give us then that then goes to council for their consideration? And then once they've approved it, then we can work with, then I would suggest highly that we form a motion today, if that's possible.
Sure, just need the wording.
Okay. Can you get us started and we can go from there? Thank you. And thank you for all of your questions. Appreciate them. I've been in your shoes as well, so I appreciate that. Thank you. And by the way, Walk a Mile in Your Shoes, or maybe I don't have the right title, that is a national event. So it's, and we're certainly well-versed to change the title because we don't want to confuse things with the wise walk a mile in our shoes. So. In her shoes, yeah.
No, I know you said
a good thing, but it doesn't roll with everybody. No, no.
I think that we want to not be too close to that other name because of the fact that Bracebridge is using that for the YWCA, so maybe we'll have to have a think tank on a new name.
So currently, sorry, I'm going to show this to everybody also in live stream. Be resolved that the Accessibility Advisory Committee requests council to direct recreation staff to work with the Accessibility Advisory Committee to review logistics and requirements for hosting an accessibility event that encourages the public to experience what it's like to be an accessible person.
Just one question for Shauna. Is that okay that we merely say recreation staff, or would you like the name of your department, Recreation, Arts, and Culture staff?
I have two divisions under my umbrella, so one is recreation and one is arts and culture, so they're together but separate.
Okay, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, sorry.
Go ahead.
Does this allow us to spend any of our money if we needed on this event? Or do we have to have a separate motion for that if and when we need to do that?
Yeah, this would be strictly to get the ball rolling. When we get down to the spending requirements, we can review with council, because your 10,000 roughly accounts is approved by council as well. So we would require a motion if you want to tap into that. We also need to find out how much money is left in there and whether it's been tapped into in the past.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Can I have a seconder on that?
I so.
Karen, second. Thank you very much.
Actually, Mr. Chair, sorry. We still have one more thing to talk about under Advocacy and Education Working Group. Just an update from the working group itself, if that's okay? Well, we are the working group, so. Thank you. And actually, I'm going to ask Councilor Varney, you had an opportunity to go to the farmers market recently and discuss accessibility with the community. Would you like to update us on that, please?
Yes, I did go, and Dave unfortunately wasn't well enough to come with me, but I was only there for a short period of time, and I spoke to a couple of people about it. People did, I was handing out the brochure, and I was talking to a few people, but I'm glad that we're there because I feel that it's not just us that have to answer questions about accessibility. It's also a lot of other parts of the town that people are asking about. So I really think that's a very positive move on the town to have that tent there with brochures and information, because they asked a lot of different questions. But as far as accessibility, I think I maybe had 4 people who spoke to me about it. Yeah.
Great, well, thank you so much for doing that. That was exciting to hear that you were able to do it, and I'm glad you went. That's great. 4 people is better than 0, right? Yeah, that's wonderful. Jonathan, may I ask where the spin the wheel buying thing is in the process for the town?
To my knowledge, is still in the works.
Okay, and does that mean we'll see it by next summer, or what does that mean?
Still trying to determine where it would come from a particular budget. But I would be confident to say that we should be able to get it for next year, summer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that something that we could authorize if the town comes to us, town staff comes to us and says, we have a great opportunity to buy this, would you like to pay for it out of our accessibility budget? Is that something we could do?
Yeah, so if we determine that there's a particular model or spin the wheel that could be purchased, because it may also be that it's not necessary for the committee to use, it could be used for other town events. So that's where our minds are working around right now. So not having to dip into your accessibility fund, rather being in a corporate budget to be reused in other ventures. So, but yeah, we could come back at a different time, sometime next year, to be able to say here's the model that we have in mind, and here is a particular budget that we'll probably be putting in. And as Sean alluded to, we have budget in a couple weeks, so we'll be able to figure out sometime then or subsequently afterwards where that spending would come from.
Great.
We have some ideas though on particular models.
Super, thank you. If you haven't already, connect with the Bracebridge Accessibility Committee. I was at the Fall Fair and this year, and they just bought a new wheel themselves, and so it was its first go through, first spin, so to speak, and they were just trying to see if it was any good. So maybe check with them and see if there's something.
So the one that we
value there.
used is the old one, I assume.
The one what?
The one we used back in May, or I think it was June.
That was a rented one.
It was a rental?
Yeah,
Okay, I thought it was from another committee.
No, this
Okay.
was a rented one, so, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else, ladies? Oh, yes, and for railings, as you recall of 1 or 2 meetings ago, we asked, and we did a motion where we asked staff to look at the hand railings in the arena, in the Bracebridge Arena, and I believe that was going forward to council to approve that be done. Do you recall if that was approved by council? I'm sorry to ask, I should have looked it up.
Through you, no, it was not accepted. And I actually went over to the arena today, just to look at the seating. And really, there should be railings at the top. When you're looking at the seating, at the end to the left, there are railings to help you get up. But to the right, there's railings at the front, but there's no help. And those are really steep stairs. And I'm sorry, but I will try again, go to infrastructure and see, and I think I might try and write out a ask for budget to see if we can get railings in the middle, up above. The steps, I believe, I don't know if they're to code or not. I just assumed they weren't, but you can't do anything about them. I shouldn't say I assumed they weren't, but they just seemed very steep. I think the width is okay. Well, I did look up for, I think it's 48 inches wide for this type of building. And when I looked at the steps, I thought, okay, it's really not the width or the height or the width of the step. It's more the slant of the stairwell, which is very steep. And you don't have anything to hold on to. So I went to the top, and because I have bifocals, I did have a difficult time. I came down sideways because I couldn't look down. I had to come down sideways. So I am going to, I mean, I'll let you know that I am going to request some sort of railing at the top, partway down, because then you could come halfway down with railings in the middle of the stairs, and then you could move over to where there is railing. If you're looking at it, it's on the right-hand side.
It did pass, just so you know.
Oh, it did pass. Okay, because I guess there was so much negative discussion towards me, I thought, oh dear. Okay, thank you, Jonathan.
It did pass. It is currently with infrastructure to review. And it's going to be, I can show you the motion if you'd like, what actually.
Thank you, because there was a lot of discussion. Now I'm much happier. Was I even there?
You moved it.
Well, that's,
Okay, that makes me feel much better.
me too.
But I will also follow that up during budget time.
Yeah.
Thank
with-
you.
Yeah, so it's in infrastructures,
Andrew Stacy.
Andrews,
Mm-hmm.
to deal with. And then what should we expect as a next step then?
Well, we wait for budget to see if it goes through.
So Andrew would submit?
Well,
would
I
or
submit
could
it.
submit?
And then it's voted on as to what's, whether council will accept, because the price will then become, will there not be a,
So it wouldn't be necessarily in your
Yes,
hands.
right.
You don't need a specific resolution to
Okay.
create it on the budget. It's currently with staff.
Right.
To put it as a line item in a budget. That would be essentially the next step, is whether it receives council approval. If you want to lend your voices as a committee when we go for public meetings to speak to the budget, you are more than welcome to come and speak to it and advocate for it to be passed.
I'd be happy to be there to support it, and I'm sure my colleagues would be happy to be there too. Thank you. That's wonderful, and I certainly appreciate your support, Councillor Varney.
even though I forgot that.
That's okay. That's all right.
I think I was
There's a
fighting
lot
so
going
hard
on.
for it, I didn't even, oh, anyway.
Yeah. No, that's all right. It's okay. Yeah. There you go. Related to railings in the arena, when I was, so because of my, well, no, let me talk about it when we do other reports. We can talk about it then. Okay.
So the next item is the Accessibility Advisory Committee Collaboration Working Group. I have not, I have to admit, worked on this at all myself personally. Has anybody else done anything on that? Right. I know, yeah. It's been a challenge.
There is an update later about the Muskoka one, at least.
Okay.
So,
All
not
right,
necessarily for Simcoe or anywhere else.
thank you. Moving on to other reports, District Accessibility Advisory Committee update.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. So for the District Accessibility Advisory Group, I know that we have something related to that under new business, so I won't address that. But related to the Bracebridge Fall Fair, when I was there, I spoke with Councillor Archie, I'm not sure how to say his last name, B-U-I-E? Buey? Councillor Archie Buey. And he was saying that they are working on an opportunity for our group to tour the new Bracebridge Arena, because we had asked them to get a tour of the new digs just to see how it's going. And so he said that there was something in the works that they were going to get to us shortly about. So that'll be neat to see how their railings are built, and obviously they're built to code because they were just built. And so that'll be really interesting to see. I was also excited to be at the Fall Fair and see them in action. And they have their own booth, their own wheel, their own jackets, their own everything. So they're really rocking it as far as, demonstrating accessibility and whatnot and engaging with people. So they use the spin the wheel to win idea to, no matter where it lands, you get to talk about accessibility. So you might get a true false question or whatnot. And then no matter what the discussion is, you win a little prize. So win a little chocolate bar. So I had a nice little package of Smarties to take home with me. So that was really nice to talk with them. And then, what else? Oh, and I sent Jonathan an email today to pass on to the group a link to the Accessibility Advisory Committee meetings for Huntsville and Bracebridge, just so you can see, the link should update every time you go into it, just so you can see when their upcoming meetings are, in case any of you are interested in attending them. In any case, it's interesting to see the minutes afterwards, so you can get a sense of what they're doing and how they're doing their work. And that's about it for me. Otherwise, it sort of overlaps with the new business discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
Through you, could I just ask, Barbara, you said that Bracebridge got their new wheel. Do they have an old wheel that?
They were using the same, I was using the same one they were, which was a rented one.
Oh, okay.
From a Bracebridge party place, so, yeah. And it was wonderful, a great wheel, but it was physically too heavy for me to carry. I had to have Jonathan take it in and out of the car, and my husband in and out of the car and stuff, so that wasn't functional. It's also very, very tall, so again, it's not functional if you have someone that comes that, it's just not functional, so, yeah. Thank you.
New business, joint Muskoka AAC meeting staff liaison. Jonathan.
I know you guys have been made aware of the joint accessibility meeting with Muskoka. I just wanted to put it on the agenda as a reminder that it is taking place on October 9th between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. An agenda will be released within the near future, like, of course, before the actual meeting begins. And it will be taking place over Zoom. So. No. Yep, you can do it from the comfort of your home. You have the option, of course, if you want to go there and physically in the chambers of the district, you can. But yeah, that's pretty much all I'd say.
Thank you. So the only other thing we got here is the correspondence, the toolbox, which I had a quick look at. Anything else? Call for an adjournment then? Judy, second. Karen?